there, you are listening to IWG Radio, the place to be for all of your wellness needs. We just want to take a moment to thank you so much for listening and just let you know that any of the information that is provided is strictly for an educational resource and is not intended to diagnose or treat any conditions. The lifestyle interventions discussed should not be used as a substitute for any type of conventional medical therapy. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Integrative Wellness Radio, the place to be for cutting edge, specific, and comprehensive integrative medical information that allows you to discover the root cause of your mystery symptoms. So I am Dr. Nicole, and I am here with Dr. Nick Carruthers.
Hello.
We work side by side at Integrative Wellness Group, and today we're getting into something that is, very dear to our hearts in the sense that, we run a practice here in New Jersey that we really try to understand the whole picture, the whole person, and get down to what is the true root cause of why they're feeling the way that they're feeling. And with that being said, over time and over the evolution of our practice, we have gone from very basic nutritional counseling and coaching to utilization of chiropractic to functional medicine to now what we call integrative medicine. And that evolution has been partly because of the voids that we've felt or the voids that we've found in the treatment of our patients and the complexity of their cases. And that kind of brings us to this topic of really explaining and diving into some of the aspects of medicine that we feel are really failing us. And what we mean by that is the segregation of medicine by having specialists that are specialists in specific body systems. This segregation is something that is keeping people lost and frustrated with understanding why they feel the way that they do. And they also are getting frustrated in the sense that they're bouncing around from doctor to doctor and nobody is necessarily doing any level of case management, and they're just not getting answers and not truly understanding the mechanism of why they feel the way they do. But most importantly, they're not necessarily getting a solution either. And this is something that we have found increasingly more frustrating for ourselves, and we often feel the frustration that our patients have gone through before they've gotten to us.
Yeah, I find it very interesting is literally last week I was having a conversation with a patient's son, and he was very knowledgeable and very smart young man. But after our conversation, I just said, thanks. It's been really nice having an intelligent conversation with, such a young person. And he responded and he goes, have you always been interested in learning all these different techniques? He's like, because he's like, you're so well versed. And I go, A, I've got a lot to learn. I go, but B, it came from voids. I go, when you learn something and it's supposed to, foundationally, I was all exercise. I was a personal trainer throughout undergrad. And, I thought exercise, like if you exercised, you were healthy. Mm-hmm. And realized that wasn't true. And then I got into chiropractic, and in chiropractic, you're a doctor of the nervous system. They teach you just as long as, the body is moving correctly and there's no stress on via subluxations, a joint that's out of place causing stress on the nervous system. Just as long as that's consistent and working properly, the body's going to be great. The nervous system's going to be great. And found that that's actually not true either, that there can be stress in the nervous system from biochemical stress, and there can be stress in the nervous system from emotional stress, and there can be stress in the nervous system from energetic stress. And it was really, I told him, I was like, long story short, I go, it was really just a search for finding answers. And unfortunately, the system for healthcare that's, out there for the masses doesn't have this. and doesn't have it as a philosophy as well.
Yeah, it's interesting in the sense that we are segregating systems and we are assuming that they are not communicating with each other. And, just something very basic, and this is a common example that I find myself talking about with patients, is that if you come to see me and you have a history of depression or anxiety or some level of mood instability, and you're also discussing with me your gastrointestinal complaints, most often the same patient is either seeing or has seen a gastroenterologist and also has seen either a psychiatrist or a psychologist for their so-called separate issues. And what I often say is that, did you know that 95% of your serotonin, your feel-good hormone, is actually made in your gastrointestinal system? So the fact that a psychiatrist or a psychologist is not even necessarily versed on that type of information, which in my opinion is basic physiology, that is just kind of mind-blowing to me, that we are going to have these specialists that are going to understand the brain inside and out, and then they're going to understand the gastrointestinal system inside and out, but they're not even understanding some of the basic hormones that are being produced by the gastrointestinal system, and have no idea that it could be related to any level of mental illness, depression, anxiety, mood instability, whatever you want to call it. And this is just one example of so many when it comes to how everything is so intertwined, and let alone what Dr. Nick said about, emotional stress on the nervous system. Some of the foundational things that are taught in even Chinese medicine is how specific emotions can be tied to very specific organ systems. And I personally can relate to this because one of the specific emotions that can be held within the liver is anger and even rage. And I personally went through my own journey of working with my liver because I did my functional medicine testing. I did heavy metal testing specifically, and I found that because of my long-term consumption of fish, mainly a lot of tuna fish as a kid, sushi, and all of these things, I obviously thought I was being really healthy. Kind of like what Dr. Nick said is, if you exercise, you're healthy. I thought if I ate, low carb, low calorie, tons of fish, I was going to be super healthy. And I maybe was achieving the low calorie, but I was also achieving, or I was acquiring much mercury toxicity. So I had, these really high levels of mercury, and I was doing a lot of detoxification for my liver and, some aspects of my kidneys as well. And I was becoming increasingly frustrated because I was taking these very expensive supplements. I was on a super restricted diet, and I was doing all of these things for extended periods of time. And as I went to go retest myself, I found that my mercury levels really didn't budge. And I was just overwhelmed and frustrated, not understanding, why my efforts were not paying off. And it was actually when Dr. Nick started to get more into understanding the emotional piece to how it affects our health. And he was exploring various techniques and really trying to figure out what was the most effective, and how did he also see himself working with his clients on an emotional level. And I'm sure he'll expand upon this. But of course, I was his guinea pig. And
we always try everything on each other before, bringing something into the mainland.
So it's a good thing. But he actually was using muscle testing. He was well versed in applied kinesiology, which he has now advanced to something called autonomic response testing, which is a type of it's a very advanced type of muscle testing that is taught by Dr. Klinghardt. For those of you that are familiar with Dr. Klinghardt, he is a pioneer in the world of Lyme's disease and integrative medicine. But he started utilizing some different tools with muscle testing me. And, he found that I was actually holding a lot of anger in my liver. And, at the time, I couldn't say that I felt angry. I had a lot of anger as a kid, but it wasn't something in my present, and it wasn't something that I was consciously aware of. So he said, okay, I'm finding that this is part of the puzzle. And I was like, okay, I get it, but is it really that big of a deal, because I don't feel angry, and that was so long ago. So he did some different mechanisms to help to try to work on the release of the anger. And as he worked on it, it was actually the following day that I felt extremely sick. And I woke up and I was like, I must be getting a cold or a flu, but I was extremely, extremely ill. And what happened was, it was a couple of weeks later that I retested my mercury. And in the interim of all this, by the way, I was still taking my supplements and I was still doing my detox protocol. But I tested my mercury levels and they finally started coming down. And I had this aha moment that I realized that some of the work that we were doing to release the emotional piece from my liver was actually finally allowing the supplements and the diet to work, because I lifted that burden and my detox pathways were actually working. And that was literally revolutionary for me, because this is not something that I even thought had any validity whatsoever. I think we all know that stress is bad, and, we don't feel good when we're stressed, but it made me understand that there is a huge emotional component, regardless if it's in your consciousness or not, that can play such a significant role on your health. And how are you going to go to a gastroenterologist and they're going to say anything about, oh, maybe your emotional layers are playing a role in why you have irritable bowel syndrome? Or if you're going to an infectious disease doctor who's diagnosing you with, hepatitis in your liver, and, oh, this has anything to do with anything else than this virus. And, some people might take the medication to get rid of the hepatitis and it might work and they feel great because the hepatitis was the true problem. But then there's other people that take it and they feel no different, or they feel worse. So, the point is that the body is so intertwined and so complex, and having these specialties and subspecialties is actually doing us a tremendous disservice.
And I mean, it has its point in time. I wouldn't necessarily say it's just a disservice, but it's really delaying people's progress for the most part. Because you can get information, but you're just not getting all of the information. And that's what allows people to, have these hiccups and have bad reactions, and as well as just, not fully get well because they're only working on A, one system, but B, just one part of that system because they're such an expert in their field. And, I always say people understand computers and technology, more today than ever. And I like to have the analogy of that your body's like a computer, and your computer uses tons of different programs. There's the internet, and then there's Microsoft Word, and there's Excel, and there's tons of other apps that people use, and each one of those really work with each other. And that's how our bodies work. We have a program that runs our liver, we have a program that runs our gallbladder, then each one of those programs are talking to each other. And what people don't understand is but I'm not really that angry. But you could have that program of anger opened in one of these systems, and it's constant. It was never shut. It was never completed. It was never dealt with. And now you just have that program open that's constantly using up energy, and it's constantly putting stress onto the system. Which for a while that might not be a problem, but over time we have the compounding effect that, all right, little by little by little by little, it's more stress and it's more stress. And then we also have the compounding effect of, if somebody's not detoxing and cleansing their system out regularly, all of that compounds as well. So then it's finally this day comes and boom, you're hit with the diagnosis. But it was really just, all these little micro traumas over and over and over. And then we start the healing process and we're like, okay, let's say, liver, because we've been talking about anger. Now we have a liver issue, let's work on parasites or let's work on viruses and like this, but then we hit a plateau. And it's because like attracts like and has resonance. So you have to work on what's, the biggest void, the biggest challenge. But as that gets better, there's usually something else that will take over and be that next biggest challenge, that biggest stress on that system. And sometimes that's starting out with, it's a viral infection. Let's work on the virus. And as soon as we get that down, then we might have to take, a little side detour. And now we need to work on the anger to release and balance and neutralize the anger. So then we can go back and work on, whether it's a virus or if, there's any other type of infection or toxicity that needs to be worked on. But it's usually not a clear path. And, we've been programmed to think that, I just take this one pill or I just do this one thing and, I should be good. But unfortunately, that's not how our bodies work, or it's not how our bodies were designed. It's really a mass communication from so many different systems. And that's just why our medical system today doesn't really get the best results. And it keeps you, unfortunately, on this cycle of once you have something, like, AKA it's your diagnosis, it's part of you because you can't heal from it. And that's a huge lie. Our body has the innate intelligence to be able to heal from anything. You just have to give it what it needs and take away from what it doesn't. And it is that simple. It's just a complex to actually, achieve that sometimes.
Well, I think that, at the end of the day, I always say to my patients that your diagnosis, most diagnoses, is just a description of your symptoms. It actually gives you zero insight as to what the root cause is. And, piggybacking even off of what Dr. Nick is saying is that when you're dealing with the body, and for those of you that are completely new to this concept of integrative medicine, or for those of you listening that have been in this world of functional and integrative medicine, and you have maybe dealt with infections, or you've had Lyme's disease, or, you've tried a variety of different therapies, one of the things that took us a very long time to figure out is that every single person has a foundational problem, and that foundational problem needs to be addressed first before you can work on maybe the other layers, or the other layers completely work themselves out by addressing the foundational problem. And it's so fascinating to me because this goes back to this, segregation or this separation of systems, because one of the core roots to so many people's issues of either why they're not getting better, why they're not resolving their brain fog, why they're not getting their energy back, why they're not, getting rid of their infections, is the fact that their filtration systems of their body, or detox pathways, whichever you prefer to call it, they are completely overloaded and not working. And you're going to have so much aftermath when your filtrations start to become compromised. So what I mean by that is your liver, I should start from top to bottom. Your tonsils, your spleen, which is on your left side of your rib cage, your liver gallbladder on your right side of your rib cage. Then you go gastrointestinal system, kidneys, and your lymph nodes. Lymph nodes, by the way, are head to toe. People don't realize that. People only think of lymph nodes in the neck when they get sick and they all hurt. But those are some of your major filtration systems. And over time, all of our filtration systems will become compromised. And what's funny is we call this like the aging process. We say, oh, I can't have that glass of wine anymore because I'm going to be hungover for 3 days. Or, I can't do the things that I used to do because I'm going to, be too sore. I'm going to be too achy. And really what this is showing us is that our aging process is speeding up because our filtration systems can't do what they used to do, aka we're not as resilient. And what happens is if you have one filtration system compromised, maybe it was your tonsils and then you got them removed, then your other filters are going to have to work a lot harder. And there's going to be symptoms that come along with every filtration system becoming compromised. So think of your lymph nodes. Your lymph nodes, that is what they do. They filter the bad stuff out. They get rid of the pesticides, the herbicides, the chemicals from your plastic water bottles, the bacteria you get exposed to, the viruses that people sneeze onto you every year. It's in charge of getting rid of all of that stuff. And once the lymph nodes become congested, instead of the lymph nodes moving around your body like this fluid river, they become like sludge. They become this sticky, goopy substance. And that is actually going to create tremendous back pressure into your cardiovascular system. So an unhealthy lymph system is not really being looked at by any of our lab testing. It's not being looked at by many physicians. The only time you're actually going to get your lymph looked at is if you have a huge giant knob of a lymph node that they want to test to see if you have cancer or lymphoma. So it's an overlooked system, but then you go to the doctor and you get a stress test or you get an EKG, and then all of a sudden you have heart disease, or you have a blocked carotid artery, or you have high blood pressure, or you have atherosclerosis, or you have some type of cardiovascular manifestation, and they either say, oh, we'll just monitor it, or you're a surgical candidate or you're a medication candidate. But this could be strictly due to the fact that your lymphatic system is overloaded with all the crap you've been exposed to over a lifetime. And especially for the people that have worked in industries like you maybe owned a cleaning business, or you were a mechanic, or you worked in a factory that tested chemicals, or you've been exposed to flavors and fragrances. Like, if you've been exposed to chemicals and toxins over a long period of time, then 100% your filtration systems are going to be compromised, and you're going to have the aftermath of it, and nobody's going to be able to tell you why, because you might be going to the specialist, the cardiologist, but the cardiologist knows nothing about your lymphatic system.
And that's why I love the muscle testing, the autonomic response testing, is you're muscle testing the body to see what it's having reactions to. And the great thing about muscle testing, understanding the muscle test is all a muscle test is you're challenging, like if you stuck your arm straight out and you were able to push down and you resisted up, it should be strong. But if your body had a reaction against something, that reaction is going to affect a part of your nervous system that connects to your muscular system. That's going to cause a muscle change. So that strong arm will go weak. And you can also challenge, weak arms, and challenging it, and it can go strong different ways. But through the muscle testing, the autonomic response testing, you're able to challenge all these different variables and see what's actually creating a stress into the system. Is it a toxicity? Is it a microorganism? Even is it emotion? That's actually how we figured out for Dr. Nicole that, she was having this program of anger that was, still opened up and causing her liver stress. It was all via muscle testing, because a lot of times we're not conscious of a lot of the things that's going on inside of us. It's just impossible. And what muscle testing does is it allows us to test the unconscious portion of the body and able to see what's stressing it without us even know. It's pretty amazing, and every single day that I do it, it's wild. Like today, I muscle tested a patient and figured out a time in her life that was really traumatic, and I just said what was happening during this age, and she just looked at me. She was like, "How did you know?" I'm like, "I'm not psychic. It's nothing. Like, I have no special abilities. All I'm doing as a practitioner is I went through ages causing traumas at certain ages, and this age came up. I'm like, let's talk about it. Let's see both the drawbacks and the benefits. Let's go through and neutralize and see the whole spectrum of what really happened, and not just the events that you were focusing on, so we can have something that happened to us and it's on the way. It's not causing us just to be in the way."
Yeah, the body is very complex, and it's not that it's overly complicated to heal. I think that's really important to take away, but it's just a matter of understanding the big picture. And that is just something that it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of studying. It takes a lot of being open-minded as a practitioner to look at the big picture of all of this. And, and honestly, we would never know what we know now if we did not work in clinical practice. And working in clinical practice and seeing the variables and seeing how different every single person's, body profile is, how different their emotional profile is, and just looking at the different ways that their body needs to heal is just absolutely so fascinating. And it really just expanded our knowledge and made us look beyond the one system, and also made us prioritize the systems and find what is the foundational problem, what is the primary thing that needs to be worked on first, and maybe there won't even be a second thing to work on, or maybe the other things that need to be worked on are just going to be not as significant anymore because we fixed the foundation. And, this is just something that not many practitioners are understanding, let alone what our medical system has been built on. Just the fact that a nephrologist and a urologist are two different people. Nephrologist is kidneys, urologist is your bladder. Like, the fact that those organs are connected and that you have to see two separate specialists to understand how your kidney is in relation to your bladder. So when you're dealing with health issues and you don't feel like they're getting resolved, and you've been put into this box of you have IBS and you have depression and you have a thyroid condition, and nobody has connected the dots to even tell you potentially how they could be connected and if they're connected, and you're tired of the I'm going to just take this pill for the rest of my life approach, there are practitioners out there that are digging deeper, and Integrative Wellness Group is obviously one of those places. And it's being able to get the clarity to fully understand why your body is where it is, and most importantly, how can you fix it? How can you fix it in a natural way, and also so you don't have to necessarily get the surgery, or you don't have to be on the medications forever. Medications serve their purpose, but we've gone from a society that used medication short term to get over a hump to almost all medications being prescribed now are lifestyle medications. They're being prescribed for a lifetime. They're not being prescribed as we're just going to use this temporarily. Even antibiotics. Antibiotics used to be, anywhere between 3 to 7 days. We will be on antibiotics for months, years. I had a Lyme's disease patient that was on antibiotics for 7 years. 2 of those years, she had a PICC line in, which was pretty much a way of, injecting the antibiotics into the body. The most horrible part about it was after 7 years, she still had Lyme's disease in her lymphatic system. And it wasn't until we fixed her lymphatic system that she was able to fully get rid of the Lyme. So this is just, again, it's understanding the big picture before you commit to a really long and intense regimen of medications or even getting organs removed. That's something that's become common practice is, oh, I'm just going to get the organ removed. I'm not even going to ask more questions about it or get a second opinion. I've worked with so many clients that they have had organs removed that
they thought was going to be an easy, let's just get it removed, the problem's going away and all is going to be glory, but there's always side effects anytime you take something outside of the body.
Well, and I think the worst part is when somebody is in excruciating pain or their gastrointestinal system is in complete disarray, the fact that they're having 30 bowel movements in a day, and they get the surgery, either they get some type of intestinal surgery or they get their gallbladder removed or whatever the case may be, and they get it removed and the problem is still there, or maybe it's worse.
Yeah, it's it's coming that more and more people are getting frustrated from the system, which is amazing because it's also allowing people on the opposite spectrum that's maybe not necessarily sick, but they're looking at ways just to improve the quality of their life. And that's what I see also, like a big change of not only people coming into our practice, but just friends and other family members that are just constantly asking me how they can be more efficient, not only with their time but also just increase their health, increase the brain activity, just increase fun, happiness, just experiencing life. And that's what really gets me excited, because it's amazing to get somebody sick to healthy. But for me, it's taking somebody healthy and helping them actually run optimal and get the most out of their life. That's what really excites me. And it's the same process. You're going through and you're taking a whole person integrative approach, and everybody's different down to the DNA, and you're giving them specific things for them to help them achieve, their goals.
Yeah, and I think that that's the biggest thing, is everybody is so different, and it's being able to embark on a type of medicine that is going to look at you as the specific blueprint that you are, because your blueprint is going to be very different than someone else. And it's getting the comprehensive testing and being able to look beyond just the traditional blood work and the traditional urine analysis, and being able to explore your body with other types of testing to clarify what is going on in your system, what is the true root cause. Are there stress layers? Are there emotional layers? Is there a toxicity layer? Is there an infectious layer? What are the pieces of the puzzle for your body specifically? And then being able to also have an approach that is custom to you, that's not cookie cutter. And unfortunately, the only way you're going to get that is by having some type of comprehensive testing and case management. And when you work with an integrative medicine practice, you're able to not necessarily even just work with one person, but have various physicians looking at you from different angles that are also going to be able to piece the puzzle together, and provide different value. So these places exist, I promise you. Integrative Wellness Group is one of them. So definitely check out our website at integrativewellnessgroup.com, because this really expands upon the approach that we are taking with patients to be able to bridge that gap and give you more information in a very short amount of time, so that you could truly understand what is the root cause of your symptoms, or even the mystery behind your symptoms. There are so many people right now that just have no freaking clue why they feel the way they do. And they've usually been to really elite places. They've been to some of the top hospitals and the top physicians, and they've, had a boatload of testing, and they still don't know what's wrong with them. And this is something that we really pride ourselves on, is getting to the root of those mystery symptoms and giving you that clarity. And from there, the solution is easy.
Yeah, it's really our passion to just help people be their optimal selves. And through that, we're constantly learning. There's so much more to learn on the body, but luckily there's, intelligent people in every single discipline. And that's what really we do, is like we go after, the major players like, Klinghart and John DeMartini and human behavior. And we learn from these masters, and we're taking all that information and putting it together in one integrative technique. And we're just very blessed to be able to do it.
Yeah, I agree. And, for those of you that are new to listening, some of the aspects of Integrative Wellness Group that, again, we've really evolved over time is we have a specific neurological brain program. That's actually Dr. Nick's program, that he's really focusing on people that are dealing with mental illness, emotional trauma, and even down to brain injury. And that brain injury can be from stroke. It could be from actual concussions and other types of head injuries. And then in addition, we also have our functional medicine program, which is geared towards, people that are dealing with some type of mystery illness or chronic illness. And then there's just people that are wanting to take their health to the next level. They want to make sure that they can live a really long time and enjoy the quality of their lives and not get sick. So this is not necessarily just for people that are dealing with some type of set of symptoms, because I always say you don't know what you don't know. And I know personally for me, and this has actually been the case for, I feel like, many of our employees, were attracted to us because they were very into a healthier lifestyle and very interested in this concept of functional and integrative medicine. Even for myself, when I did my testing, I almost, was being like cocky about my testing. And I was like, my blood's going to come back perfect. I work out, I eat well, I'm super healthy, etc. And when I had my personal testing come back, I was completely baffled. I had so many things going on that I had no idea about. And, I had to almost marinate on it for a little while. And I was like, I guess some of this does make sense. And it was really when I started my own health journey that I realized I felt like crap. I just had no idea because it was my normal. Like having brain fog was my normal. Needing to sleep for 12 hours was my normal. Having to rely on coffee was my normal. Like all of those things were my normal. Having, 5 out of 7 days out of the week, having 5 bowel movements per week was my normal. Like those things aren't technically normal. They were just going on for so long that I didn't know any different. So I think that's a really valuable thing for you to take away, is that, regardless of where you're at in your health journey, get the information now before symptoms manifest. Don't live in that model. Don't fix it until it's broke, because that's usually what gets us in trouble. Because when we're in that emergency state, that's usually when, we end up getting, things removed, or we get put on these really hardcore medications. And sometimes that could be a pretty significant rabbit hole. So with the different facets at Integrative Wellness Group, we are looking at the physical body, we're looking at the brain, we're looking at the emotions, we're looking at the amount of chemical toxicity. We're looking at if you have certain infections, if you're dealing with Lyme's disease. We're really trying to look at the big picture. And that is why we're able to confidently say that we could work with so many different conditions, because it's not about the condition. It's not about the diagnosis. It's about the root cause.
Amen.
Preach on, preach on.
So thank you all for listening. We really hope you got value out of this. Check us out, integrativewellnessgroup.com. And if you haven't already, subscribe to us on iTunes and leave us a review. We really appreciate you hanging out with us, and we will talk to you next week.